Man, God's first creation. Father, son, uncle, brother. On a journey of highs and lows, you were created in the image of God and given dominion in the earth, destined for great things and to fulfill purpose. Join us on Men on Monday as we discuss all issues related to men. We are unifying family, building you, building strong families, building strong futures. Join us on Men on Monday.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope that you are well today as we get started with today's edition of Men on Monday. I am Marissa Boyce, and yes, we are joined by our men today to be joined momentarily by Minister St. Clair Brown. Good morning again, and welcome to our show today as we continue our look at, yes, compatibility and chemistry. What does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for many of us? Understanding. So we're going to go back a little bit this morning, and then we're going to come forward just a little bit. As we get started today, I just want to say good morning to Pastor Edison Bino, Bishop Mark, Minister Sinclair. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you? How was your weekend?
Good morning. Good morning, everybody that's listening. I had a weekend that was a blend of good, blend of great, blend of not so good. But, overall, it was a good weekend.
Yeah, for me, mine went well. I got some rest and everything went well. I'm happy to be alive this morning. Hallelujah.
How's the
I'm
back,
doing
Minister
well
Sinclair?
this morning. It's coming along very well. No, just dealing with some nerve issues. So, yes, like nerve pains kicking in. So I'm dealing with that at the moment. So yes, having to
Yeah,
take my
you know how
time
that.
is difficult. So I'm learning so much long suffering with this. So yes, please, I'm coming along well.
Does it make it more real for what we were talking about when we were going through, and Bishop Mark and I spoke about what we were going through with that pain? Does it make it more real?
I don't know. I know it makes it real painful.
I was asking Bishop, Minister Sinclair, does it make a
Yeah,
difference, when you realize, oh my goodness, this is what Marissa was talking about,
talking about. Let me tell you,
what Bishop Mark was talking about?
like it's still in the face, man.
Yeah. Well, good morning, everybody. It is good to have you. We've been looking at compatibility versus chemistry, and it's an interesting topic as we've been sharing thus far. The interesting thing about it is that learning what chemistry is, learning what compatibility is, and the elements that make good compatibility. And I think that that's something for us to just sometimes pause and look at the elements that make good compatibility and what makes good chemistry. Because today we're going to be looking at what is it that we're looking at again today, Bishop Pastor Bino? We're looking at low chemistry, high compatibility, those kind of things. What are we looking at?
Well, one of the things that we're looking at the combinations. Yeah, we're looking at the different combinations based on a diagram that Minister Sinclair has sent. Sorry, he sent this diagram that showed that you can have low chemistry, low compatibility. You can have low chemistry, high compatibility. You can have where the other two. You can have high chemistry, low compatibility, and then you can have high chemistry, high compatibility. So it's looking at how those play out and how those affect the relationship, how you could be at different stages, at different points in your life, and that kind of thing. Yeah. So maybe we could start with the low the low chemistry, low compatibility, and
Yeah, I was
go
trying
from
to
there.
fix something here. Sorry.
Yeah, we're getting some noise in the background. Yeah, we'll try to figure out how to navigate those technical issues. Yeah. All right, but let's start with the low chemistry, low compatibility. So this is a relationship where there's no intimacy and the conversation is at a basic level. So this is a relationship that really is not going anywhere. Yeah, this is there's no connection. You and the person, you're not connected in any way. You just don't click with the person. Think of it as a blind date. Somebody set you up on a blind date. You meet the individual, and when you talk to the person, there's just nothing there. There's no chemistry, no fireworks, no excitement, no enthusiasm. The person don't look the way that you want them to look. They don't dress the way you want them to dress. They don't talk the way you want them to talk. So there's no chemistry, nothing at all attracting you to this individual. And then when you begin to talk to a person, if you've ever watched those movies that show people on blind dates, and then it shows them going on different blind dates, and they're talking to people, and the people just weird, people crazy, people just no compatibility, no nothing similar, nothing that you can talk about, that you can kind of connect with the other person. So when you encounter that situation, low chemistry, no fireworks, no nothing, no attractiveness, low compatibility, no similarity, no common ground that you can build a relationship on, then that relationship can't go anywhere. So if you're single and you meet somebody like that, the relationship is not going anywhere. Yeah. The question would be now, what happens if that develops in your relationship? It wasn't always there, but years into the relationship, children come along, responsibilities come along, and that sort of thing. All of a sudden, you find that the chemistry is very low, and then you find that the compatibility is not there. So you have grown apart. Somebody might have grown professionally. Somebody might have grown in ministry. They might have grown in their relationship with God. Then the question is, when that happens and your relationship now is characterized by low chemistry and low compatibility, is there anything now that you can do to revitalize the relationship? So I going to stop there. But the first one, low chemistry, low compatibility. Bishop Mark, want to jump in there?
Yeah, I tend to agree with most of what you have said in terms of, that particular relationship combination really is not going anywhere, because obviously if there's lack of intimacy and um, well, the fact that the chemistry is not right, I think if we're honest with ourselves, we tend to pick at that from early. I remember years ago as a young man, well, not so young, but having recommitted my life to the Lord around what, 27, 28, having initially given my life to the Lord when I was 9 years old, and then, you went to school and you backslid. Not in a bad, I went into drugs or nothing, not backslid. And I found a lot of my friends were seeking to match me. So somebody would say, because I got married at 33, I was very happy to do so. Because when I got back to church, I decided to focus on God, and that was it. And so a lot of my friends would be trying to match me with people. They might see somebody that maybe we were in a group and we got along well on that occasion. And they would call us, hey, got somebody that I think will match with you. And when I started to speak to the person, although with all the intentions that nobody can pick for me, realized that the chemistry just wasn't there. Whether it was, how when the person talk or when they move, it wasn't there. So when you find that there's low chemistry and low compatibility, that I think that speaks for itself. That you have to be honest. Although sometimes a person might get attracted to the physical attributes. So it's not about chemistry, but I like how he looked, I like how she looked. As a dark lady, I wanted a clear fella so that my children would be brown skin. All of these various things can come into play. And so you stick with it because maybe of the physical or something like that. But once I think you have low chemistry and low compatibility, and we can never say never, because I always say God has a very serious sense of humor, in my opinion, because sometimes you will say that a relationship that is hopeless, and because the people are willing to work on it and spend time on it can work out. But I think generally we have to say that low and low really means that it should keep it on the low, right?
Go ahead, Minister Sinclair. Let's hear you. We're talking about
That's it.
our first tile on our
Low
compatibility
chemistry,
chemistry
low
matrix.
compatibility.
Yes,
Yes,
low
please.
chemistry, low compatibility, a relationship devoid not only of intimacy but probably basic conversation too. On the rare occasion this does happen, it doesn't last long. And
Yes,
as
please.
Minister Singh, Mrs. Pastor Bina was just sharing, it is sad if a relationship gets to that point, a marriage gets to that point,
Yes, please.
it's almost as if you're like the roommates, you're living just two passing ships in a home. But it's also a great place to start to find out if a relationship will go somewhere. It's a great
Yeah.
place to begin, and be able to gauge, you know what, do we share the same interests? Do we are we are we on the same path? And it happens through building the relationship, getting to know each other. Go ahead, Minister Sinclair.
The interesting thing with these concepts, which are very good and they're tools to be used, but when you got something like in the East where people have arranged marriages and they last, and I mean, and they're happy. I mean, like it's only every once in a while you find the best with show videos or movies of a lady in a marriage that she will like, but you find that they literally are in a healthy relationship, have a family, produce all those things, and these are arranged. There's no dating, there's no flowers, there's none of that. Is yeah, you marrying Bob, you're marrying Jane, and we meet and we get married and we go. It's like yeah, cool. And so a lot of this ideology also is challenged by other cultures. So you'd be surprised how cultures actually that we come from affect how we look at a thing, how we look at a person, how we look at relationships. What is it that we really like? So you can find even, let's say with a hairstyle. One time, a lady shaving the side of her head was not a thing, right? And then Rihanna did it, and then it became a thing. All of a sudden, women were, yo, I like that. All of a sudden, it looks nice. So was it that it didn't look nice before, or was it because it became acceptable as a thing, and all of a sudden it was more appreciative? So if we look back culturally, in the 50s and before, a plus size woman was an attractive woman. That was the girl to go and get. A skinny girl could not get a guy, right? Because a skinny girl was not attractive. She was not seen as a wife material, if you can say to you. So once again, skinny girls were losing it because they couldn't get a guy. You know what I mean? If you look back at all the, especially African culture, the more voluptuous a woman was, the more attractive she was. So she got all the guys. So what has happened? So a lot of things when we think compatibility and attractiveness, some we think it is subjective, but it's very much cultural. So even when you talk about chemistry, and I going back to the analogy Bishop Mark used last week, it is the X. When we use a car, when we use a car, I think that makes it seem, very something that we can use all across. It is that thing that we look at. We like the color of the car, the lines of the car, the shape of the car, all those things. But if you think about it, there are cars that once time was the car to be had. I remember the Bluebird was the car to be had. Now Bluebird passed, nobody cares about it. 11, 1 and 11 was the car to be had. But once again, you have 11, no, nobody's looking at it. So there's the external and that whole thing of chemistry and, oh, look at man, I love it. But that's the same thing. And when the questions they ask couples is, if you didn't have to work with money or anything like that, and you could choose any car in the world, what car will you choose? Yeah. People go for the Bentley or, all these different types of cars. Yeah. Lamborghini. Okay. Now here's a different question. If the car you choose is the car you have to keep throughout the rest of your life, when you get a family, children, this, that, you have to keep this car. When you choose this car, you have to keep this car for the rest of your life. Now all of a sudden we are thinking different because a Lamborghini will fit if I got kids and those things. So we started to think differently about the vehicle. It's the same thing in marriage. Many times we want what we want, which is the flavor of the month, which is the chemistry. But are we really looking for somebody that's compatible with us for the journey of our lives? And yes, if you have low chemistry and low compatibility, there's not that connection or relationship, and it could cause a real serious issue. But I think culture also impact our thought process when it comes to chemistry.
You
Yeah, I
know,
was
and
sharing some stuff there. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, no, I was just thinking culture does impact, and Sinclair did mention the fact that you do have arranged marriages and so on. But then in some contexts, you also have to look at the success rate of marriages because at the end of the day, there's certain criteria that still have to develop or still have to be built
Yeah.
to make the marriage work. Yeah, because there are also marriages in the East that are miserable, and where, like for example, you have husbands that abuse the wife, don't like the wife, even may divorce the wife, that type of thing. So culture will have an impact, but it's looking at what will make for the marriage to be healthy, what will make for it to be successful, what effort are people going to put in, what commitment are they going to demonstrate. Because we could go back to the Bible. You have Isaiah, not Isaiah, sorry, you have Isaac and Rebecca. That was an arranged marriage, but there was the development of a certain level of chemistry and compatibility that made the marriage work. Because in biblical culture, men used to divorce women for any and every reason, and so therefore the woman had to in some way satisfy the husband, and that kind of culture was very patriarchal. So we got to look at what will make the marriage work. If two people are fundamentally different, yeah, in terms of low compatibility, is there anything that can help to get them to a place of compatibility? Or
Mhm.
is it the relationship that you should walk away from? Because there's some things that you have to walk away from. This just is not going to work. And in business, there's something called sunken costs. People keep on putting effort into something that will not work, and they know it's not going to produce the returns that they're looking for. There are some relationships in terms of people who are single, because they're desperate for a relationship. They put a lot of effort into it, and they keep on putting effort, and they end up wasting their time, wasting their life, because the relationship really is not going to go anywhere. Yeah. So even before you get married, before you, because some people force a relationship and then
Yeah.
they go ahead and get married, and it's the worst mistake that both of them could ever make, because really and truly they were two different people, and there was no way that they really could have worked out the difference. So most of the times those couples end up separating, divorcing, and not only are they miserable, but if they have children out of it, because some people feel, let me put some children in the mix, and that's going to help to develop some of the things lacking in the marriage. They go ahead and do that, and they make a even bad situation worse than it was before. Yeah. So there are factors that you got to look at as to how I'm going to work on this relationship, if at all possible. And as Minister Sinclair has pointed out, sometimes you need to have tools that you can look at that will help you to evaluate different areas of your marriage and determine, or any relationship, and determine, hey, what can I do differently to make this thing work? Or if I'm single, is this relationship going nowhere? And therefore, I should walk away from it before it gets any more complicated. Yeah.
That's a good question, Pastor Bino, because I'm there thinking, what about people who are already married and this is the nature of their relationship? How do you recover from a place when you're like two passing ships? There's no compatibility, there's no intimacy, so therefore there's no chemistry, and so you understand that, you know what, we don't even have conversations. So it's almost like a dead horse. What then do you do, as Pastor Bino says, to rebuild something that like is dead, especially if you're already married? Bishop Mark, you want to jump in there quickly?
Well, the only way that we can do that, that can, if it's dead, is a dead horse. Miracles do happen. You can still raise, people can be raised from the dead. But my thing would be that the only way that something like that, and that's why sometimes people live in homes and they got their segregation done and they'll make out with the marriage and so on until they die. But I think that if a couple is already in that situation, and I find that very hard, that means that they probably didn't had the right counselor or sought counseling. But I think that the only way that it can be turned around now is if they're prepared to now get the counseling that they probably didn't have before. And then they are willing, because you can go to all kinds of counseling and hear what the counselor said, but they must have a willingness to be able now to work on the challenging areas that they have. And maybe sometimes you will find that it is that people don't have an understanding of what to do. So instead of trying anything, they stay back. But then if they are humble enough and honest enough, they listen. There many times, I'm sure the others will agree to this, they're able to turn things around. But that is trying to get those kind of horses together. It could be very difficult. But I think once they come to that realization that, look, there's still some stuff here. There had to be something, however, a little bit of chemistry, that whatever, a little bit of compatibility, there had to be something there. So, hey, let's try and see if we can nurture that and turn that into something special. And I'm sure that Sinclair and the others can testify that we have had some hopeless situations come before us. And today, they're working out. So there's always hope once people are willing to make the necessary changes that are the necessary changes that are required.
Yes, definitely. Because there's so many that come to mind as for counseling where low compatibility, low chemistry, and the marriages or relations seem like it was zilch. I'm a strong believer. I mean, and some people don't believe this, but I'm a strong believer. You take two people, maybe two healthy individuals, not meaning people that definitely have abusive natures. I believe that you can take any two people and you can make them have a relationship if they follow these tools. Just there's going to be a degree of compatibility. There's going to be a degree of joy um, and functioning. But I believe honestly that you take two human beings and put them in a space and they can find element of loving each other. Because there has to be something. We got two eyes, we have two ears, something. We have to find a level of compatibility at some level, even at the lowest degree. And many times we more focus on the areas that we disagree on. And any person that is in a relationship, and we hear about the 80-20 rule, 90-10 rule, whatever, we mentioned that before, that it is by human nature. Human nature, we have a tendency to more focus on the negative. And the sense to this, as I said, I use sense scientific tools also. Now, when I did mention the area of the East, this was scientific testing because they want to know, and yes, there are unhealthy relationships both in the East and the West. But they found in the East, even with these arranged marriages, that they were actually more successful, less divorce in those areas. So that was the question. That's one of the reasons you see all these game shows now on Netflix and all these, Love at First Sight, if I do all these things. Why? Because they recognize the East did something and they're trying to work out. They're doing these experiments and they're making money at the same time. There's one that I find quite interesting now, where you don't see the person, you're behind a wall, and you kind of date the person behind the wall, and you propose to the person before you even see them. But the thing about it, you get to tell the person at the wedding if you want to go through it or not. And they find people actually fall deep in love without even seeing that individual. I mean, and people are shocked, like, why do I feel this way? And I've not met the person. All we did was have a conversation. So they recognize that there are different degrees of compatibility and connection and chemistry. And the West is kind of doing a catch up because they had this idea you have to know a person before you get engaged with them and married to them. Not necessarily, because we are complex human beings and we connect on a lot of different levels. So, for instance, when I tell people, like my wife and I, I mean, based on what we had going on before, we were not each other's type necessarily. Yeah, we're not necessarily each other's type, but we found ourselves in a space and there was an attraction, there was this, and then it built. So there are things that, despite the fact I think Bishop Mark said it, where you might think, oh, I have this connection compatibility, and all of a sudden, something hits you left wing. Yeah, you're like, okay, here's a girl. Whoa, you know what I mean? She's jumping out at me a little bit. And all of a sudden, this thing hits you. So when we talk about chemistry and compatibility, it is low. Yes, it is not a desirable relationship. Yes. But Bishop Mark said it very well. If we get two people that are willing to say, I am willing to try, that is the hardest part right there. If you get two people saying, I am willing to try out my marriage, that right there supersedes everything else that we're hearing this morning. Two people that decide, I'm going to try. Not people saying I'm not doing what is necessary, but two people are willing to say, I am willing to try. I'm going to try. Not people going to come 3 sessions and expect a magic one to occur. Because you have low compatibility, low chemistry, it's going to take several sessions, bit by bit, to unlearn first, and then to retool and to relearn and be deliberate about the connection. And I believe all of us will be shaking our head when Bishop Mark said it, that we had cases that would have seemed dire, and now, people are now, having, according to my brother, explosive sex. You bring that back.
Sinclair, you seem to be stuck there. I wonder why.
Trust me, I was telling my baby once. Oh my goodness. Anyhow,
Yes, I've had
but
comments about it too. Mhm.
oh my goodness. Right. So we have people know that are back there that honestly did not think that they would ever have a connection with a human being. But God has designed us with something called choice. And it supersedes everything. I am so serious. If we choose to say, you know what, I choose this person. And that's what I said to people was that me and my wife, we have low compatibility based on the testing that's done. We have about 30% compatibility. If you go on the test variables, we end up in red, right? Our personalities mesh and it is red. Is like, honestly, leave this alone, right? Because it's green, yellow, thing, but it's red. Our personalities don't necessarily fit together. It takes choice, it makes decision, it takes deliberate action. And we have high chemistry and high compatibility. But when it talks about if you look at just the personalities alone and the meshing, it will be in the red, which means then that we have to make deliberate actions to bring what Bishop Bino was saying is to bring those elements of low compatibility, low chemistry deliberately into high compatibility and high chemistry.
All right. So we're gonna continue to show our interesting chart, our matrix today. Good morning to Shane and Veronica, the Invisible Man. Good morning to Ramon with us this morning. Please like and share our live stream. We're talking about chemistry versus compatibility, and we're looking at just what just maybe you can look and see where you are on the chart with your relationship. The next one is high chemistry, low compatibility, when it feels so right, but you know it's also wrong, aka walking dumpster fire of a relationship. Yeah. What is that? Let's explain that.
Me and Mrs. Me and Mrs. Jones got a thing going on.
Wow.
Yeah, high
High
chemistry,
chemistry.
low
Yeah.
compatibility. That is so shallow. But it happens. It happens where it feels right, but everything else there is wrong. You have this connection, it's high chemistry, and because you see the human body, you cannot tell it what to connect with or what to find attractive. All of a sudden, and that's why if you don't have discipline, people end up cheating in relationships. Yeah, because all of a sudden and especially at work, the workplace is the highest space of fornication and infidelity. Why? Because we spend more time with a person at work. We look our best, we smell our best. You know what I mean? We're winning at that stage. So you find that you're in that space with a person for 8 hours uninterrupted, and then the chemistry,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, like, woo, somebody find a space at work, and then they get caught, and then the margin hell. So there's a high chemistry, but we know that there's not a lot of compatibility there. So it's very flippant and it's very, very, very shallow. So in a marriage, a person that actually I think Bishop said it also, was where people go in because they want to marry so bad, want a relationship so bad. They get this high chemistry. Oh, he's cute. But the guy has not been productive. He's 40 years old. He still live at home with his mother. You know what I mean? Sorry, like seriously, that is a red flag, like legit. You know what I mean? The guy has had several jobs. He's not stable. He's not this. He's not that. But this high chemistry, you understand? Our girlfriend, she has not been stable. Her finance, she has been a whole set of things. She looks good. Sex is great, but the compatibility is not there. So you have a very shallow and not rooted deep relationship.
Yeah, but I find that the high chemistry, that is where a lot of people fall on because you go by the physical, you go by how nice it feels, you go by the fact that when you walk down the road with your handsome guy, everybody say, "Wow, will you get here? Listen, let me tell you," or the fella say, "Wow, that woman you got there, boy, she look good," and so we trade all the other things for the fact that we have this feel good. I got a hot chick
For
with
the
me, every
physical.
time it turns. Huh?
For the physical. Trading everything else for the physical.
Yeah, and the chemistry, you feel good with them. The chemistry, because it's high, you feel that everything is right. But then as St. Clair said, when you rubber hit the road and you got to make certain decisions, you find you go out and you might very well find that the girl all the time playing she brat, she ain't pulling out a sink and you start to wonder where. But what's this here? What's the sugar daddy here? What's happening? Because all of a sudden you start to put out little tests, or you love the guy, the muscles, you love everything. But boy, when he started to eat, he got the food flat all about the restaurant. He digging his nose as he eat. And you say out there embarrassed, or like what happened in my relationship. As you can see, I'm very bubbly and I talk low because I got a lot of diaphragm. And my wife, when she first met me, we be out. And she be on the table knocking me, all right, Mark, it's time to behave now. All right, Mark, cool down now. But you know what? Over the years, she has now become the jokester. Because I can't get in a joke at all. because she now has become a bit more compatible. As a matter of fact, more compatible now. So it is these kind of things. So that is where you see that a lot of times we have struggles with relationships is because the chemistry that the low and say one of the things they have the problem with mostly is this high and low compatibility, because a lot of times the reason that the couple are not the persons are not compatible is because of how they've been culturalized and so on, and so they're kind of like set in their ways. So when these issues come up now, boy, it is hard sometimes to give up ground. It is hard to turn the other cheek. It is hard to say, well, look, what I'm going to do is, as we were talking earlier, myself and Clear, in terms of how we go about and work with the people. You're not willing to work because it's like, I am me and you got to accept me for me. And if you can't accept me for me, go along and that kind of thing. But you don't want to say go along because you have that high chemistry. So that's where you see people would say they finish and they finish this week. And next week, boy, sorry, darling, let me get back together purely because of the high chemistry. And that can be very dangerous, because what happens sometimes is that people are not able to let go. And so they become violent. And that is where you hear men would want to go and kill women and then kill the children and themselves and all of that kind of thing, because of a lot of stuff, baggage, and then the fact that the chemistry is so strong, they can't do without it. So it's like a drug now, So and then again, they don't want nobody else to experience that kind of chemistry, right? So they become a selfish kind of love.
Like what Bishop Mark said, boy, that up and down relationship, you're together today, you break up tomorrow, just because of the chemistry. And the thing about that chemistry is that that's where you get a lot of infatuation. Yeah, people are strongly attracted to the person, and the same infatuation typically lasts for about 2 years. It can last for greater or shorter, but the reality is it lasts for approximately 2 years. So you crazy about this individual, but really and truly, there's no future in the relationship. Not to say that you can't work on it, as Minister Sinclair pointed out, but there's no similarity. There's no compatibility. The relation tempestuous. The relationship just up and down. Now, one of the periods that I find that this can happen easily is when men reach that midlife crisis. So we had a program that talked about the trophy wife. The man, you're hearing about some of these relationships. Some of them can work in the sense of a older man, younger woman. But sometimes it's based on the fact that I'm going through a midlife crisis. So in order to prove my manhood, that I still got it and so on, I want this woman, she's a certain look a certain way. She's pretty. The man looking at her, she got all the different assets, whatever, whatever, whatever. So sometimes you find during that midlife crisis, you have that situation where you have high chemistry, but then low compatibility. The two people are very different. There's nothing that draws them together. They can't even carry on a proper conversation. Yeah, the relationship is just based on a kind of hype, kind of romance, sex. There's nothing outside of that to really make the relationship work. Yeah. So many times our emotions can get ahead of us. We meet somebody, the fireworks go off, the person look cute, the person attractive, the person might even make us laugh and all sort of thing at the initial stage of the relationship. And we fall, we talk about falling head over heels, we fall head over heels. And they say love is blind. We become stupid behind the person. But the man got nothing, no depth to the relationship, but we crazy about this individual and we can't explain it. There's no science, there's no reason. The friends are like, but wait, why she like that man? But he's a clown. He ain't going nowhere. He's a womanizer, blah blah blah. But the woman gone crazy. And same thing with some men. They like the bad girl. The girl that's no good for them. No, in the reading that I did, an example was used. The youth pastor and the drug dealer. How can you have the youth pastor and the drug dealer connecting? But that happens all the time, where people just connect with people that are lawless, indifferent, rebellious, whatever. But chemistry, and there's that saying, the heart wants what the heart wants. It's so stupid, but it is powerful. The fact that sometimes we get caught up with people and we can't even explain the nature of the relationship, why we get caught up with the person. So again, we got to be careful. I don't know if Minister Sinclair got some remedy for that high chemistry, low compatibility, and how to navigate it.
You mentioned something very powerful there. A lot of people don't know this, and you mentioned it. And glad you brought it up. That chemistry lasts about 18 to 24 months. So a lot of people don't recognize that chemical thing, and one of the main things I try to get people to understand is, people call and say, "Oh, I met my guy and I met this person." I say, "Listen, at least give me 3 months." You know what I mean? Then it does settle a little bit. Don't have any sex. You know what I mean? Even for my Christian people, sorry, my Christian girls, yeah, you meet the guy, you don't have any sex, right? Because this whole thing that, sorry, ladies, y'all know when you got 8 y'all might scratch. And I'm saying to y'all is that why? Because you meet the guy, high chemistry, all these things, and you have sex, it totally makes you stupid. And because you've now gone into bonding that goes beyond reasoning. Because we're dealing with chemicals, we're talking about one flesh. Flesh is the chemicals, the hormones. There's an element within inside the human body that connects you with another person. So yes, there's a chemistry, but now when you have sex, you start a united flesh. We talked about those integrated, spiritually, emotional, is a combination of things, and it blinds women for certain. All of a sudden, everybody can be telling you, worship leader, why you like this guy that on the block, and he's not studying, he's not this. But and then here comes culture. Disney, oh, you judging a book by the cover, you shouldn't judge. No, I tell people honestly, it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, it's quacking, is not an eagle, it's a duck. All right. So we stop with this stupid thing where don't judge a book by the cover. The cover is stupid. I'm not reading the book. We got to get past these ideologies that the world has given to us, and we've lost sense. And so I don't have a problem with finding a person attractive, but until we build a maturity that goes beyond our attraction. Don't think that because you get married is going to solve your chemistry. Because you get married, you can see a girl that looks good. You can see a girl that you're attracted to. You will see a girl that you connect with, or a guy as a female. Don't think if you get married is going to solve that. You know what I mean? You'll be married to see a guy that you connected to. You will see a guy that you connected probably more than your husband. What do you do then? It should be the same principle you had even before you're married. Common sense should go over the chemistry. So like high chemistry, low compatibility, and that depends on what knowing yourself, what your morals, your ethics, your all those things. Because if you meet a guy and he's not, especially as a Christian now, and he's not equally young, don't try to do this foolishness of I doing ministry and trying to get me into the church. And we probably may hear one, two testimonies of, oh, I remember people said this, but look at where he is now. He's a pastor. That is a very small percentage. You're playing Russian roulette, and more often than not, we're going to get you out of the church more you get us into the church. Very high probability, right? So the compatibility of ethics and morals and stuff like that. If the guy belongs to fraternity, Liam Bunks, have a guy, it is chemistry, but sometimes you have to make those hard decisions.
You see, as you shared there, is I was there thinking, how many people can identify when it's a high compatibility versus low compatibility relationship? How many people can see that this relationship is more about chemistry than it is about compatibility? Because people confuse it because of the emotional aspect of it. So the fact that I met this guy and I like being with him, you're thinking, oh, we're compatible, when it's more chemistry there than anything else. And after the time has passed, as you said, 3 months, the honeymoon period, you realize, oh, this man chews with his mouth open. Um, he's like Bishop Mark, keeps a lot of noise in public, and I can't deal with these things. So it's important to be able to identify to identify these things, because I found that as I'm sitting here, people, especially if they're now getting to know someone, I believe that unless they really know what it is chemistry, know what it is compatibility, it is difficult to be able to gauge, is this relationship one that's beneficial to me? Are we more on the chemistry level? Are we more on is this real compatibility? Does this compatibility have longevity to it? So to be able to identify these aspects as you go through relationship makes it better for persons to know, should we invest or should I walk away at this time, especially if you're in a relationship. But then even more after you have been married, to recognize that we've reached this lull in our relationship, or this has become a pattern of behavior that is not healthy. This is not where we want to go. How do we move from here when we are in the first tile? and we've been married for 5 years. Imagine being five for 5 years, and this is you're on the first child where there's low chemistry, low compatibility, and you're expected to build on that for the rest of your lives. So I think it's important for persons to be able to identify where they fall on these spectrums. I really wanted us to get through the other tells, but it's not going to happen this morning. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this morning. Our time was moving on to 13 minutes now to the hour of 10 o'clock. Interestingly enough, too, I wanted us to go to refresh ourselves with our listeners and our viewers with this, because when you understand these aspects, this level of intimacy, it helps you to understand where you fall on those tells. I was just there thinking about that. Do you agree with that, gentlemen? If you can examine the level, because somebody can have intellectual and financial intimacy with somebody, but no emotional connection at all. You can be spiritually and intellectually connected, but you don't feel that physical connection with that person. You don't feel like, oh, we're getting married, but I don't want that person to be too near me, to touch me, that kind of thing. So we need to understand that these aspects, and I believe strongly in understanding these levels of intimacy that make a big difference in understanding whether you have chemistry and whether you have compatibility. So what say you, gentlemen?
Well, you made a very important point that there are different types of intimacy. The beauty about marriage is that you can grow in your relationship. Yeah. And therefore, if there's a commitment, if there's that willingness, then you can get the tools that will help you to grow in the relationship. So Minister Sinclair talked about the fact that him and his wife don't really have that degree of compatibility. So then they had to work more at their marriage to make it work. Yeah. And that's the thing about marriage. When you're already married, there's already that covenant. So the issue is, what can we do? How can we invest? How can we make our relationship better? So you might not be compatible in some of the areas of intimacy, but you can improve in those areas. You can get tools, you can get counsel, you can get books, you can talk it through. You can work on those other areas. So the beauty about marriage is the fact that you can invest and continue to grow and to develop. And then you might find that, yeah, we went through 5 years of marriage, pretty good. Then we began to struggle. Things started to decline. We started slipping to different levels, but then we realized it and we started to make the effort. We went to a counselor, did what we had to do, and the marriage became better. Yeah. So in the context of when you're married, you can continue to grow. So we don't want people to feel frustrated when they look at their marriage and they recognize that there are areas of dissimilarity. Don't want them to feel like there's no hope. It's just that you need to invest and begin to grow. Yeah.
Yeah, I think also that I would suggest to any couple that a lot of times we things are right before us and we can see. Sinclair saw all the time. You can see. You ain't stupid. That's his words I love. You ain't stupid. You can see. So what I would suggest is that even as we would have talked about those things, the emotional, the financial intimacy, all of these things, what people need to do is maybe have an assessment. Now, sometimes people are not mature enough to deal with this on their own, and so they should get help. But I don't see it as a big thing. As I do it, you get a piece of paper, divide it down a sheet, divide it down the middle, and or cross of how many areas there are, and you list them. Financial intimacy. Can we discuss stuff, and do we understand how our finances are going? Emotional. How do we respond to stuff? Yeah, we good at that. Or problem of physical. I don't let you touching me up kind of thing. But that's where a husband like. You got to learn how to adjust. So by listing these things and having discussions, honest discussions, not about trying to win, not about proving that you don't have these inadequacies. You could say that, well, I kissed you last week. Last week, you should be kissing the woman every day, right? So what I think for people, and what I'm suggesting here is by no stretch of imagination, easy, because a lot of times people are too prideful. Men always say, "We're going to come to another man can tell me what to do." And that time he's so weak in all the things that he does, he need help. So it is sitting down and have an honest assessment, discussion, write down your thoughts, and try to come up with where are we lacking, where are the areas up. Sometimes the physical just fizzle out. Yeah, financially struggling all the time in terms of what we do, we quarreling. And then when you do that assessment, right? And that says in itself that you're serious about making changes. You're serious about addressing the shortfall, and whatever. So once you do that now, realize, well, look, we still bickering, we still can't seem to come together on this. Is the time that you got to be man or woman enough to say, look, let us share some of the same money we have and try to go and get some counseling so that we can make this thing work. Do that assessment by yourself. You don't need the body for that. And if you're honest with what you see on the paper, you can say, oh, that's me. Okay, it's when you get now to the point of how do we change it that you could very well then look to find the profession. And what I've found a lot is that when people are able to make a little fun about these things and make them lighthearted, even though they're serious, they're better able to deal with them without having all the tension and the cussing and the cursing and the vexation and not talking for a whole week and that kind of thing. So it's very important that, if you like what we call the intimacy and all of that and all this, and the compatibility is not there, you got to work on it. And it's best to do your own assessment first, and if you're willing to do that, I believe that's a start in the right direction.
That's a start with honesty. That's a start with honesty right there, because many people, because you're sitting and saying we're looking at these tiles: financial intimacy, spiritual intimacy, emotional. How do we manage these aspects when these challenges come up in the relationship? How many people are honest to say, you know what, I don't handle the conflict well. I don't handle the finance. You know that when it comes to finances, hun, you spend more money than me. You spend too much money. How many women want to hear that? How many men want to hear that? And to be honest with the answers, and to be, and it's also let it be a safe space to be able to share those things, because I want to be able to share safely and say, I don't like when you leave your shoes at the door, or I don't like when you don't hold my hand. To have a safe space to hear, and then to have the right responses to it, that just comes to mind. Sinclair, go ahead.
Well, I think Bishop Mark was going to say something. I don't know if he has thoughts.
Yeah, no, I was just saying to add to what Marissa was saying, that that is where you always say when you do the assessment and then you write down. The way you write down is that you look at the pro and the cons. So you can't tell me that we don't have or we lack financial intimacy, and then when the figures work out, when you look at the check, but we analyze how the thing is going. We have them person who want to be say you're right when the facts speak to the reality that, look, this is what's been happening. You feel that you're ever so emotionally attached, but then when were the times that you were emotionally? What were the times when I was trying to get you to understand X, Y, and Z? Where were those times? So once you do that in a practical way, you will have you really. I don't want to go that strong to say a mad person. They will have be really stubborn, and I know that people are in what you're saying. You would really have to be really stubborn to see the facts and then want to ignore them. Although we know that people do that.
And
You
to
see,
give
it's
Sinclair the
actually thing
final
right
word,
there.
to give Sinclair the
Yeah.
final word, it also can't be all negative. That's the thing. It can't. You said that, Bishop Mark. The pros and cons. We can't be all negative, and I think that's important for us to pay attention to, because sometimes we can only say and see the negative, but we don't also see the positive. Go ahead, Minister Sinclair.
The thing about it, we mentioned this in another session before. We talk about the blind side of a person, and most of us do not want to see the blind side. And I'm sorry to say, more often than not, once again, it's not a tap, but more often than not, women don't like to see their blind sides, because they do tests with persons, and we look at personalities and looking at the positive and negatives and stuff like that. I told statistics, it is not subjective. Women do not like to hear about their blind sides. I'm like legit. Right? And we talk about being crazy, and that's my word, because we are crazy. The truth of the matter,
It's been on Monday, Sinclair, so I'll let you have that. But go ahead.
yeah, I got statistics to prove my thing. I ain't subjective in anything I'm saying. Um, you know what I mean? I just said it was 12 hours a day, so I didn't say I'm factual this. Um, the thing about it is that we all have crazy in all of us. We're, as Bishop Mark is saying, here's something that's factual. Is saying, don't do this, because here's the opposite to this. Don't eat the sugar, it puts on weight. Yeah, we see the facts, we still do it. You know what I'm saying? So we all have a level of crazy in us where we can see something that's factual, we see the evidence, and we still do it nonetheless. You're a diabetic, don't drink the Coke, we still drink the Coke. Why? Because there's an element enough, it's why we see the facts, we are still going to allow ourselves to do what we need to do. And in relationships, it's happened the same way. And there's some areas in people that you have to embrace that, sorry, not you have to, but some people embrace the fact, you know what, this is who they are. This is who this person is. So you can have a person that don't like to kiss and you love to kiss. What's going to happen? And that happens. You know what I mean? That happens. So there's some people that, despite having the conversation, despite having the sessions and they're in there, and you have two variables at the opposite end, what do you do? Do you walk away because of the kiss? We have a person that really ready to kiss, a person doesn't want to kiss. The person saying, "Oh, well, you should at least kiss the person once in a while," and if that happens, then great. There's somebody that decide I'm kissing. Period. The dog dead. You know what I mean? And the same thing we go all across the spectrum when it comes to intimacy and sex. We talk about all the different elements of that. There's some guys that come in here and say, well, I would like my wife to jump off the chandeliers, and she's not a chandelier jumper. So what is going to happen? Are we going to walk away from that because we're not getting this element? So some people, it's okay for us to say, let's have a conversation, let's hear the other person, let's have some flexibility. Some areas, some people do not flex. And that is the area I tell people, some of you have to accept a person for who they are, if you understand. To tell Bishop Mark to be a quiet individual, he starts to die inside because that is who he is. Yeah? So, and I would say his wife was there saying, but he too loud, but that is who he is. So all of a sudden, Bishop Mark has a choice to either then become more passive and not be as loud, or she can learn to embrace some backstation. She knows it's becoming a joke, but somebody's making a bend in the relationship. And what we have on first, we want to do this thing called kumbaya. Let's all compromise. Let's all negotiate. Some things are not negotiable. And that is a part of a relationship, a mature relationship, is that there's some things about your spouse that you have to accept. And it doesn't mean that you're losing. It doesn't mean that you're becoming less. It just means it's called love. It's something that you learn to understand that this is who my spouse is, and you accept them. And that is what love is in the fullness of it all. Your microphone is still off, sorry.
No, I got you. I got you because as you know, this when I think about relationships, it can be so overwhelming to think, okay, what should I compromise on? What should I not compromise on? Because I want my hand held and he doesn't hold my hand. Is it that major a relationship? Is it my deal breaker? Is it something to walk away from? He might not hold my hand, but he might make sure that your oil is changed in your vehicle. So I think we
Exactly.
need to
Suppose he's a committed guy. That might think,
yeah,
what is the real thing? The guy may not
yeah,
hold your hand. Yes, holding your hand is important. It makes you feel good and fuzzy. Yes. But it's a guy that you know that will not cheat on you. So you put the two scales on there. Am I going to feel, yes, I feel bad. I make this man don't hold my hand. It's going to hurt. It's going to feel bad. But I know this guy's a loyal guy. What is more important? And sometimes we have this, some things that are both important, and we put them on a scale. Which is more important? You might have a guy hold your hand, hug you in the middle of the tongue, but if you leave him for a second, he's going to cheat on you. You have to kind of work out what is the most important. Girl may not kiss you, but girl is loyal. What is going to happen here on these skills? Sometimes we don't understand that in a relationship, there is not a negotiable in some areas. But unfortunately, we think
yeah,
that we have to win at least in every pocket. And in some pockets, there are no winners.
yeah.
There are some
It's
things we
quite
have
interesting.
to accept.
Quite interesting. Well,
That is
when
that is why even 100% chemistry and 100% compatibility is still a problem, right? So if you get 80%, thank God for that. Because let me tell you, don't think that we are talking about trying to get 100% each. Murder, trust me. And maybe we can discuss another point. But that is a very important thing to remember, right? And I remember one time my wife was saying that I'm kind of a perfectionist and she might only be able to give about 90%. And that revolutionized my life because what it showed me is that science, we tend to fight for that 10% extra. Trying to make everything perfect and get rid of somebody 90%. With 90% in any test, in any exam is a pass and an excellent pass. So we need to sometimes, factor in, even with statistics when you're doing analysis, factor in a little percentage on each side. You understand? And I think the relationship would be a lot more easy, a lot more I can't find the word, but the point I'm making is let us not try to get this 100% perfection thing and then
yeah,
result in a very good person. Yes,
reminds me of
please.
the 80-20 rule, that 80-20 rule where people, they fight, they have the majority of it going on, but the little 20% we focus, as I said before, we cannot, it cannot only be negative. It cannot only be negative when you're looking at a relationship. Too often we focus on the fact that we're not getting this one little thing, but we forget that there's the majority that we're getting behind. So it can't
Yeah,
only be negative. There has to also be the positive. But the
yeah,
makeup is, and as a social construct is, sometimes that because we're not getting what we're looking for, we think that the whole ship has been sunk
that's
because
for
we
sure.
didn't get it. You know.
That's why Kenneth said that you should always seek to accentuate the positive.
Mhm.
Just want to say
Yeah.
something quickly. Nikita has
Mhm.
here, is it Men on Monday or relationship life from a healthy standpoint? I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that. And I think Karen said something here, and I think this is another issue. And it's serious. Women, I want to get this to you, please. This little nugget here. It says relationship should be about sacrifice on both parties. Whenever there is a sacrifice, generally speaking, women want to say, let's do the kumbaya. I try to get me, please get ready for the kumbaya. Because it's like, if I give, you should give too. There's always this, like, if I do this, you should do this too. And once they feel that you're not doing this, then they start to withdraw. Because some things, as Bishop Mark said, and that we mentioned all the time, there's sometimes as though the person is giving 110, and it will feel as though they're not giving a sacrifice. That time they're dying and bleeding, and it would not feel as though they're doing anything. Yes. So women, please. I know y'all like to balance out things. I know it's your nature, but maintain relationships. It will not feel as though what you're giving, what you're receiving is not the same thing.
Absolutely clear on that point. That has been today's edition of Men on Monday. Woo, that has been today's edition of Men on Monday. And thank you so much to Pastor Edison Bino, Bishop Mark, Minister Sinclair for sharing with us this morning. And to you who've been viewing and listening with us today. We've only got through the first two tiles on our compatibility chemistry matrix. We looked at low chemistry, low compatibility, high chemistry, low compatibility. And next week, we'll end our look and our real love, Teach Me to Love series, low chemistry, high compatibility, high chemistry, high compatibility. We'll be looking at all of these final two in our matrix next Monday. So feel free to join us, like and share our live stream today. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget that Bishop Edison Bino has his book out. Feel free to check him out on Amazon. That's right. Make sure you check him out on Amazon. And also don't forget that we want you to head over to the folks over at Healthy Cottage. Hearing that Minister Sinclair has been working on him himself, I'm sure that the folks over at Healthy Cottage have been taking care of him. Thanks to all of you. Have a great one, a great week ahead. Feel free to like and share our video today, and follow us on Unifying Family. Click that follow button so that you're updated with all the updates. When we go live and we share our live devotions daily, Pastor Edison Bino, so faithful. I must commend you for that, for sharing our devotions on our page daily, encouraging words. So feel free to jump there, follow us there on Unifying Family. And also, for your new position also at Charnox. We didn't say that, but your new position at Charnox Pentecostal. He is now the pastor there, the senior pastor there at Charnox Pentecostal. So we really commend you, Pastor Edson Bino, doing some great work indeed. God bless you to all of you, our viewers with us. Have a great one. I see Karan and all the others, Basil, Nikita, Ramon, sharing their views and their thoughts with us. Thank you so much for joining us today on today's edition of Men on Monday. God bless you. Bye bye.